They do
Well,
both.
welcome everyone. It's really great to have a packed house. This hasn't happened in quite a while. I'm very happy to see y'all. And if you would all rise. And Frank, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
If you have cell phones, do you mind just silencing them? I can hear some going on. Please.
We are dedicating tonight's meeting to Richard Bell, who has retired from the Recreation Commission. Richard, many of you may not even know who Richard is, because he worked behind the scenes on the Rec Commission. He was never a very public figure, but he was very involved in the community for 15 years. On the Rec Commission, he was on the Rec fundraising campaign committee, the capital fundraising committee. He also worked on the comprehensive plan, and has been for me a wonderful source of advice, gentle advice, gentle steering, but very helpful to me, and I think made a wonderful contribution to the town. And again, he wasn't up front making speeches and doing public service work. It was all more behind the scenes public service. So he and his wife, Katie, have moved to Virginia, and they sold their house, which overlooks Buttercup, beautiful setting. Anyway, by way of thanking him, I would just like to dedicate the meeting to him tonight. And then I will force him to watch the video so he can see that we did so. Rita, the roll call, please.
Wendy Bergman.
Present.
Julie Dakota.
Present.
Eric Haynes.
Present.
You should have said here.
Absent. Theodore Secor.
I am here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The red on the microphones means that no one is on?
We're all on.
I think we're all on.
We're on.
That's, I just thought it should be green.
No, this is counterintuitive. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll start with our town board liaison reports. And Teddy, we're going to talk about the post office during the course of the meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So, but will you make your reports, please?
Yes, I will. I have 3 reports, as usual. So the CSC, which was last month, we are the 3rd Monday of the month. We just did a quick overview to 2 people who attended, Betty and Bob. They were interested, so they attended the meeting.
This was the Climate Smart Task Force or the CAC?
CSC.
CSC. Okay.
I know that's Climate Smart Communities Task Force. We discussed the composting survey, which will be released at Community Day. We will be at Community Day right next to the CAC. And we will have a cute little gardening activity for anybody, kids of all ages, so 9 to 99. The Haunted Fortress Subcommittee, we met last night. Our new meeting time is the first Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., just in case nobody knew that. We finalized our scenes, we discussed marketing, and we're actually expanding free marketing, so we found several newspapers, at least 30 actually, in neighboring states who, as long as they're free, we will advertise to them because they are adjacent to the Hudson Valley, actually.
Cool.
So, and work this Sunday. We are going to be down at the Haunted Fortress from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can stop by for half an hour or the whole time, and it's camaraderie and it's work. So, and the final point of discussion is the ZBA. They will be meeting next week at 7:30 p.m. to discuss the Charwell Drive issue and answering possibly the court remand in the case of Cosgrove et al. V. Rathjen et al., I think is what the case is referred to as. And there might possibly be another public hearing for a matter that was supposed to be discussed last month, but the person did not get notices out in time. So they may be discussing that matter. It's regarding a setback variance. Otherwise, that's it.
And the Charwell Drive, that meeting is specifically about the nursery, the remand, is a nursery an accessory use or not?
Yes.
Thank you, Teddy. Eric?
Yes, good evening, everybody. I attended the planning board meeting on July 31st. There were 2 items of business that evening. The first one was a lot line alteration at 57-81 Wendover Road in Stanfordville. It involved the purchasing of a triangular strip of land that is 0.17 acres. There was a motion. The motion was approved and passed. There's going to be a public hearing on September 25th regarding this alteration, which is a type 2 action and no seeker required. The second item of business was a lot line consolidation and alteration at 5886 Route 82, which is at Sister Hills Road. It was a minor subdivision and a lot line change. Motion also passed. There'll be a public hearing on the same day, September 25th meeting, and this is also a type 2 action, no seeker required.
Wait, that was a July meeting?
July 31st.
So there's no August meeting, as
Yes.
per usual?
Yeah, the planning board does not
It's
meet in
camp-
August.
Camp month. Julia?
Yep. So the CAC met July 17th. 4 main points. The CAC put together a suggestion and presentation for the Iroquois pipeline. For those of you that don't know, the Iroquois pipeline runs from Canada through Athens, New York, through Dover Plains. Those are 2 main compressor stations. It does not run through Stanford at all, but the CAC is going to present next month on the Iroquois pipeline and a request for the town board to write a letter or pass a resolution. The letter will go to Governor Hochul. Governor Hochul is slated to decide on whether or not to approve the expansion of the pipeline. It is a natural gas pipeline that is about 30 years old. And so if approved, it would increase the capacity for natural gas that would flow from Canada through New York into Long Island and basically Manhattan area, so lower New York area. Lots of other towns, not lots, but several locally have passed some resolutions, including New Paltz, which is most notable, and Dee Dee Barrett, Michelle Hinchy, and Pat Ryan all wrote letters of support as well.
Support to expand?
No, not to expand, excuse me.
Support not to expand.
Support not to expand. So Governor Hochul is deciding whether or not to approve. The pipeline is still going through permitting process with the Department of Environmental, the DEC, was it Department of Environmental Conservation? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. And so that's still going through the permitting process. The next item was the natural resources inventory. That is in draft mode right now. The CAC does need help with editing, formatting, and design of that report. So if anyone is interested, please let the CAC know, or myself. Greg Williams, who was the chair of the CAC, is moving, so he is resigning from his post and will no longer be chair. So they'll name a new chair at their next month meeting, or this month's meeting, excuse me. And then on August 3rd, there was a cleanup on Sisters Hill Trails by the DLC, and it was well attended, and a lot of brush was removed. There will be another cleanup in October.
And we're looking for a new member for the CAC.
To replace Greg.
Right.
Yes.
We're also looking for a new member for the Climate Smart Task Force.
If you say CAC and CSC, it's just as
It's just
confusing.
too hard for me. And also, we're looking for, no, I think we filled the position, or we're filling the position for the rec commission.
Yeah, that's
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, okay. Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, and the Iroquois pipeline, does it go through the town of Clinton? Is that the nearest?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because I looked at the signatories on the letter that was sent in December to the governor, and there were only 3 towns at that point from Dutchess, and Clinton was one of them. And then so was Rhinebeck and Amenia. So anyway. Okay, my reports. I went to the fire commissioners meeting about a month ago, and the most important thing I think that's happening is that they negotiate. The fire commissioners are also our ambulance district commissioners, so they are in the process of negotiating a new ambulance contract for us, which I have to say is a bit scary for us because we're currently we budgeted for $850,000. It costs us $62,500 a month to have the ambulance service. We no longer, as you all know, have our volunteer ambulance service had to close down because we didn't have EMT workers, and the fire department just couldn't do it anymore. So they had contracted originally with Northern Dutchess paramedics, and they asked us to budget for $850,000 so that we could get to the higher level of service, which we still haven't gotten to, which is called.
Have we paid them?
Oh yeah, we pay them every month. We have to pay them because we have to have an ambulance. We can't live in a town without an ambulance. But we have really no control over what they're going to charge us next year. Every town in Northern Dutchess that is contracting with them, is in the same position as we are. Obviously, this will affect the budget that we've just started working on. And as soon as I have a sense of what they're going to be charging, you all will know about it. That's a separate line on our on the budget, but it impacts our tax cap, which is why this year we've already passed a law to exceed our tax cap, because we didn't do that last year because we thought it had its own tax cap. Be that as it may, for me, that's the most important thing that's happening in the fire district right now. They're continuing their annual vehicle and equipment servicing. They're starting budget work in August, and they opened the bids for the 5-year audit contract, and that went to Ted Iglett. I can't say enough how much I respect our fire company and the commissioners. It's all volunteer, as you know. The hours they put in are astonishing. They were all out on the call when the Kemmerer Farm went down in flames, as were several other fire companies, adjacent fire companies. It blows my mind. These are all volunteer men and women, and they're doing a remarkable job. Let's see. I also went to the Zoning Commission meeting, of which I am a member. And we were discussing, at this last meeting, we were discussing the right to farm law, which we are still in the process of discussing. Tom Angel is our magnificent chairman, and he has an intern working for him this summer who did a tremendous amount of legwork on what right to farm means and putting together a sample law for us, but we're still in the process of digesting all of that. And so that work will go on. We are starting our own budget process this month. I get back the estimates from all of the department heads next week, and then I strap myself to the computer and drink heavily and start working, because it's truly an arduous, it's really a hard piece of work. we don't want to raise taxes. We also have services that we need to provide, and there are people who are asking for additional services that we have to consider. Do we want to spend an extra, I don't know, $600 a month to have a videographer at our zoning commission meetings or our planning board meetings? Those aren't, I don't know if those are the meetings people have asked about, but every single one of these things we just have to consider and weigh how many people will this actually serve, and is it worth the cost? Because at a certain point it hits your tax line and my tax line. So we're doing that. The nursery school has vacated the premises. It's kind of bittersweet. We gave them 2 years to find a new home. They weren't successful, but we definitely needed the auditorium, gymnasium, whatever you call it, back, especially considering that in November we need to have the polling in there because it'll be a huge election, and we can't do it in the space that we were using for the past 2 years. So the nursery school is out, and one other observation you may have noticed is over the past day or two, the laundromat has been totally dismantled. And I have to give a total shout out to Jacob Angel, who, like, bit by bit is making this town more beautiful. I saw the design for the new laundromat that he's putting on that property. Is it Halton Construction. I mean, they did a beautiful job on a house right on Route 82. But so this laundromat will be reconfigured as a laundromat. It's a gorgeous design, and then there will be 2 apartments upstairs. So if you notice that there was a lot of banging, and that's what's going on over there. And I think we will be talking about the dismal condition of the post office later in the meeting. So I think with that, I will open up the privilege of the floor. For those of you who have something to tell us about the town, please just come up to the podium, give your name and address to Rita Mary, and then you have 3 minutes to tell us what you think.
Teddy's got it.
I got it.
Okay.
Is this all, the ADU laws?
This is not the public
This is
hearing.
different.
This
is
is
not the
just
public
normal,
hearing.
right.
Thank you very much.
You can talk about ADUs now.
No, this is just normal old privilege of the floor, and if nobody has anything to say, except for Johanna.
If I come, I have to say something, right?
We would expect no less. Podium.
I just have 3 things that I want to bring up. One is to say that it's been a long
Johanna,
time.
your name and your address.
Johanna Schaefer, 21 Baker Road. It's been a long time since I've been to a meeting, but I want to comment on the pipeline, first of all, just to ask a question. Where is the gas going to be sold? Who's going to be receiving the gas from the pipeline?
That's a question that I don't know, but from what I understand, it's
New
mainly
York.
to be New York City and Long Island. But that's a question that I think
We need to
all
ask.
need to
Okay,
ask.
I was curious because I have heard in several places that it's going to be sold overseas. And then I feel most uncomfortable with my tax dollar going for that. I also would like to really thank folks for finally, after all these years, having something substantial about the right to farm law. It's been many, many years that has been brought up consistently year after year. And thank you so much for something that seems to be very positive about getting it actually done, maybe this year, if we're lucky. Okay. And I think that might have been my 2 things. I thought I had 3, but those were the 2 things.
We'll have more information in September. We will have a presentation, we hope, from the CAC. And part of the reason I really want to have that have back and forth, because we have questions, and I'm sure y'all have questions, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We will have a second privilege of the floor, so I will, if there's nobody else right now, I will close privilege of the floor and open up the public hearing on local law number 8, allowing accessory dwelling units in all zoning districts. I will very briefly say that this was the first issue that the Zoning Commission took on. It was kind of at the top of the list in the comprehensive plan that was passed last December. The reason I think there's an urgency to it is we're trying to come up with ways where we could create more rental opportunities in our town. Hopefully, the rental opportunities, we can't control the prices of anything. That's not in our wheelhouse. But the hope is that there are units that are created that our own grown kids could afford to live in, and that our aging population can afford to live in. Again, that's not in our wheelhouse, what people charge for rent, but we felt that it was an important thing to finally try to address. And there were such restrictions in our old zoning law. I don't know, just to name one of them, if you built an apartment over your garage for your aging father, or just to have an apartment over your garage, it had to be a relative to live in it. So your dad could live in it, but if the student next door wanted to rent it, they couldn't. It wasn't allowed by law. So that was a restriction that just seemed goofy, for lack of a better word. Anyway, so that was the origin of why this has come up first. Tom Angel brought in the consultants from Dutchess County Planning. We had a very productive and wonderfully long meeting with them, and then the Zoning Commission wrote a law, passed it on to the town board. We discussed it, I think made a few adjustments, and then here we are tonight. I apologize for sending out an incorrect version of it. There were a few iterations and I picked the wrong one, but the most recent one that I set out and the one that's on the table now is in fact, the law that we're here to talk about tonight. So with that, we're ready for your comments, and if you have a question, I think either Bob will be able to respond to it, and we also have Tom as a backup down there. So,
Could I have a second on the opening public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
so please just come up to the podium, say your name and address, and have at it.
We already got one.
Hi, I'm Manny Gonzalez, 195 Huns Lake Road. I'd first like to say, I guess we're going to all call them ADUs instead of saying available dwelling units.
Auxiliary dwelling unit.
ADUs,
Yes.
Okay. I was surprised at this announcement of this law, and I think a lot of people were. And I would like to ask that perhaps we hold off any final voting for at least a month for more of the town to get together and understand with the fully written law what it is. So I'm asking that we pause that. Now I have a question. It said you can build it attached or detached. And if it's an existing structure like say a garage, and it's 20 by 20, can I now make it 30 by 30? Or do I have to follow the footprint?
It wouldn't be restricted to the current footprint, no, I don't believe
It
so.
doesn't have to
No.
follow the current footprint? Okay.
As long as it meets the setbacks, that are the required setbacks.
Well, now that's literally my second question. I had a situation where my neighbor required a double setback to put in a garage, and the zoning board approved it. So now here we have an ADU, and instead of my 20 by 20 garage, I make it a 30 by 30, and I need a variance. I need a setback. Are these going to be approved willy-nilly? I haven't seen many restrictions on setbacks. They seem to be approved most of the time, and that's a real concern I have with an ADU. The crowding of lots based on the expansion of footprints for that particular lot. Another thing an ADU can have is it must have a kitchen, bathroom, living, or sleeping facilities. So this could be a studio, correct?
You mean a studio apartment?
So you don't really have a bedroom, you have a bedroom, living room.
I would think so, yes.
That's my question. A studio versus a one-room dwelling. It could be a studio?
It could be a studio.
Okay. Now, in the studio or whatever, you say you must have a kitchen appropriate size, and it must have a sink, a cooktop, and a refrigerator. Would a hot plate be a cooktop? Why not?
Possibly.
I mean, you got a lot of opportunities with this ADU stuff. I think in general, it's a very good idea. We do need more rental housing for seniors, young people, and whatever. But these are questions I have a concern about. And then one of the other things, you have cluster development. An accessory dwelling unit is permitted in a dwelling located in a cluster subdivision. I don't know what a cluster subdivision is.
That will be timed, just so everybody's aware, but.
Tom, do you want to give a quick course in cluster subdivision?
Do I?
Tom Angel, chairman of the zoning commission as well as the planning board. So a cluster subdivision is a situation where you have, let's say, make it easy, a 20-acre lot. It's in an area of town with 5-acre zoning. So that would permit 4 separate lots on that 20 acres under current zoning. And what a cluster subdivision is, in the interest of preserving land, open space, farmland, you make the actual houses and lots for the houses smaller. So maybe they're 1 acre rather than the 5 acre.
So it's basically density housing. In other words, you could have 4 houses on a lot, you put them on 2 acres and leave the other.
That's
4
exactly it, yeah.
Never heard it referred to that way. Lastly, you say you're looking to control short-term rental. Now, the question really is, what is short-term rental? Is that an Airbnb? So I was wondering, can the zoning laws or some other regulatory group have perhaps a minimum 3-month lease? A 3-month lease, you wouldn't necessarily have Airbnbs.
I think your 3 minutes are up.
What's that?
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay.
But I think we can, I can say to you that the town board right now is working on a separate issue, which is short-term rentals, Airbnbs.
But it's separate, so this law allows Airbnbs without any, you're saying a separate group is working on an Airbnb.
I'm saying there's a separate law that will set the standards for Airbnbs in our town, and part of that law is there's the stay can't be any longer than 31 days. So it's a different.
3 months, 31 days, but they're working. Okay.
Yeah, we're working on it.
And I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, this law does not allow, nothing in this law permits or is intended to allow short-term rentals. It's not, it just doesn't address it.
That's why we're working on another law. I also, excuse me for interfering in the public hearing, but I want to point out one other thing, if I haven't already, which is that not one of these ADUs can move forward without the Department of Health being involved. And that was, they need to approve that there's an adequate space, and I think I already said this, so I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, for sewer and for well. And that, for me, is a great, is kind of a big, what's the right word? Like, you have to get through that hurdle before you can do anything else. Right.
Impetus?
Ibis?
Impetus.
Okay. All right, next person.
Impetus.
Yes, Anthony, please.
Or restriction.
Am I on? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so I just want to preface by saying that I am a supporter of the ADU law.
Your name and address, please.
Oh, sorry. You don't know. Anthony Sornicola, 25 Hunts Lake Road. Thank you. No, you're welcome. All right, so I am a supporter of the law. And the primary reason that I supported the comprehensive plan in the first place was because I believe that it would provide affordable housing when affordable housing was getting more scarce here in Stanford. And I wanted to make sure that we were limiting gentrification and unfettered real estate development. So that said, I read the law. I appreciate the law. I think that there is nothing about the spirit of the law that is in question at all. I think that it's doing everything that we wanted to do. I'm a little concerned about the letter of the law and some of the wording, and I'm not a lawyer, but reading it and having discussions with some of my neighbors, I think that some of us are questioning whether there are loopholes or gaps in the wording that may let developers take advantage of the loopholes. Two things, very quickly. There doesn't seem to be any provision limiting the owner and operator of an ADU to be the owner and operator of the primary residence, nor is there any provision saying that the owner and operator cannot be an LLC or a management company. So what will stop me from selling our barn, for instance, to a developer or a management company who can renovate and rent the property at a high cost and give us a regular kickback every month?
You can't sell your barn without doing a subdivision. You can't.
That's true.
You can't just sell your barn.
What if I'm just selling the building and not the property? That's not a subdivision, can I?
No.
Or whatever.
The building goes with the property.
Building goes on the land.
Okay, that's a bad example then, but still, where does it say in the law that the owner of the primary property or the primary dwelling has to be the same person who owns? Is that just something that we assume is going to happen as a result of the current law?
Yeah, I think it's a given because the primary residence and the accessory dwelling are going to be on the same parcel.
Okay, fine. Cool, thank you. That's why you're the lawyer and I'm not. All right, and the second one is there seems to be no provision limiting the size of an ADU. What would prevent a developer from buying a parcel with a small cabin and with a very low tax assessment and building a much larger dwelling?
That's time, by the way.
Fine, making it, I'm just gonna finish my sentence, making it a primary residence. So the larger is the primary resident.
We actually had conversation about that, and it's Kathy was saying it's happened in the past where people they just swap out, and that's still legal. Like if you're living in a little cabin and you build a big house, or you're living in a big house and you build a little cabin, you have the right as the property owner to switch and live in either one.
All right, so this has nothing. It's not going to have any impact whatsoever.
We talked about it, and we basically said, because we said, should it be 75% of the original unit? Should it be 125%? And then when Kathy was talking to us, she said, well, you can switch the size, you can switch your primary use at any point.
So I could do that right now.
You could do it right now.
Regardless of whether or not this
You can
law is
move into your barn if
I can
you
do it
want.
right now. Awesome. All right, cool. Thank you. That's really all I wanted to know.
We want to have a speakeasy in our barn.
Well, and we want you to. Richard.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
My name is Richard Kaufman. I live at 80 East Huns Lake Road. And I have a question about the auxiliary dwelling unit because I went before the planning board a couple months ago and discovered that with 0.78 acres, I cannot have an accessory dwelling unit because the requirement by, I think, state code is has to be an acre and a half. So my question is there any change to that with this law?
Under the law, the property or the accessory dwelling has to meet the dimensional standards in the zone. So if you're substandard, you wouldn't be able to do it, I don't think, without a variance.
Is it possible? Well, the board wouldn't give a variance either because they said it still required an acre and a half. so I'm a little confused.
I can't speak for the ZBA.
I can respond to that question.
Thank you.
So, in your situation, you could have an accessory dwelling unit if you're able to, depending upon how it is located on the property, depending upon getting Board of Health approval. If you were going to build a new structure on your property, you would have to meet the setback requirements of dwelling house. But the acre and a half would no longer be required for anybody to have an accessory dwelling unit. So that
So if this
eliminated.
passes, we could put a stove in the room above the garage that we built.
You would be able to, because you have an existing structure, as long as you get Board of Health approval.
Right.
That's
The
going to be
septic
the
and such.
issue, is are you going to be able to get, a septic system for your new,
That's already in there.
yeah.
Okay. My wife asked me to come here and speak in favor of the ADU law, so on her behalf, I'm asking that it be approved. However, when we found out we couldn't have an accessory dwelling unit on the property, it became for zoning purposes, it became a studio workshop. And it meant that at last I had my own man cave. So personally, I'm asking not to pass it, but my wife says please pass
I'm going to tell her you said that, Richard.
it. She knows.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Renee Richard, and I live at 6 Drake Road in Clinton Corners. However, my visit to the podium at this moment is not for me. It's for a neighbor, and I have something that he's written that I thought I printed, and I did, but I didn't bring it, so I'll get it to you, Rita. So I'm going to try to abbreviate it because I think it's longer than 3 minutes. However, here goes. So here we go. My name is Patrick Hancock. I have asked my neighbor Renee Richard to read this for me as I am currently out of state. I live at 10 Hogue Drive at the north end of Upton Lake. I grew up nearby Clinton Corners, as did my mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother before me. Mom went to junior high school in this building alongside Irv Burdick. Professionally, I taught biology, earth science, environmental science for the Wappinger School District prior to teaching at the Cultural Development Committee in the New Jersey Department of Agriculture. In short, I have spent the vast majority of my life in Clinton and Stanford, where I currently serve on the planning board. I am familiar with the region and with real estate concepts. First, I want to thank the board for grappling with a persistent and growing problem throughout the county, affordable housing. Your proposed law is a start, but not the solution. I have several concerns. For the sake of transparency, the proposed law was never an agenda item for the planning board. The concerns expressed are mine alone and have not been discussed with other planning board members. I have a number of questions and believe the proposed law could result in a number of unintended consequences. First, crowding of dwellings where it is not intended or appropriate. Second, those with finances to do so, who may own several dwellings in town, could double the number of dwellings in short order, and after 5 years, and I believe he may be referring to an earlier version that you posted, convert them to short-term rentals. This would not solve the affordable housing issue. To my mind, affordable housing means rents or purchase prices that are below median or at least stabilized prices or rents. The goal of the law seems to be to increase supply and rely on the laws of economics to lower rents. I am not at all confident that lower rents will result. Question: how are you defining affordable housing, and why do you think this proposal will work for the long term?
I can just say, we're not calling this affordable housing because we can't control what people charge for rent. Or was that the end of the thing?
No, that's his first question.
Sorry.
No, and I'm grateful that you're answering the questions because I wasn't sure how this all works. So
Before Wendy answers, that was time, by the way.
it was 3 minutes.
That was 3 minutes.
Holy Toledo! All right. So, do I do a reprise and let everyone else go and then come back up again?
Well, why
Or
not-
shall I continue? There's a little bit left. I
Okay,
can
sure-
give you
sure,
the
go on.
abridged
I mean,
version
if
as
you-
best I could.
Okay, you can speed read.
Okay, speed read. We have significant bodies of water in town such as Upton Lake, Hunts Lake, and Wappingers Creek. Increased housing density near these and other bodies of water could eventually result in septic effluent seeping into these waters which already have significant weed growth. For those who would downplay this eventually, I cite 2 cases. Bengal United Methodist Church, there were chlorides and nitrates. It is now in private hands. The chlorides issue was resolved, abbreviated version, but the Bengal hamlet predates zoning. Houses are close together. Septic systems from at least 5 homes, plus our own, were all in close proximity to our well. There was a mention of Saratoga Lake, where there were primary and vacation homes, and their associated septic systems ultimately, and the effluent ultimately resulted in a sewage line being installed at a considerable cost to address waste disposal. And then here's one other question. Are you seeking pro-housing community certification per Governor Hochul's program for affordable housing, announced May 23rd, 24, which is making $650 million available to communities around the state? If so, what are the state's criteria to earn such certification, and will this criteria serve our town well? And how much funding does the town hope to gain from the state?
We have not approached the state at all. And to answer the second question really briefly, the Department of Health will not allow, like at Hunts Lake, there's not going to be any auxiliary dwelling units unless it's the Department of Health says it's okay at so-and-so's home to have an apartment over a garage. But the defining, I can't come up with the right word, but what's going to put rails on all this ends up being the Department of Health. And if there's not adequate space for proper sewer and water and separation, then they won't approve it. So I think that addresses, some of the concerns that he's raising about places like Hunts Lake.
I have one more 30-second.
No, I think we better stop.
Okay, all right.
But, you should submit it to
Well, yeah, I'll share, because the concern was that the role of the planning board was eliminated.
The planning board was
So-
not, I have to say, and I would like you to tell Patrick this. Rita Mary did exactly as she was supposed to do and gave the planning board a copy of the law to review. They had 45 days to review it. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened in the mailbox.
No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but just to save your time, it says, I would argue the old adage, multiple heads are better than one, because the planning board is not, and the secret review process are not a part of the ADU law any longer. The planning board is not lead agency or the secret process.
What I'm trying to say was we asked for the planning board's input. It never got to the planning board. It got lost in the mailbox. But I just want Patrick to know that we tried to get their input within the 45-day period, and then we move forward with this. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a copy of this, and then perhaps the rest of the letter, if you want to address it individually or at a separate time to Patrick, I'm sure he'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. No, it's not.
Good evening. My name is Walt Zakarowski. I live at 7 Hogue Drive in Clinton Corners, and I have recently become the president of the Upton Lake Homeowners Association. I'm here to talk about septic again. I'm sorry this meeting is going downhill, but we have just received a letter from, or an email from Curtis DeVito. Mm-hmm. And Curtis sent me a copy of a report on Upton Lake that was done by the Department of Environmental Conservation on July 11th of 2008. It gives water quality and problem issue information concerning Upton Lake from the Department of Environmental Conservation. And in this report, it says that the water quality problem is a severity severe, type of pollution, algal weed growth, source of pollution, on-site septic.
This is from 2008.
2008. It hasn't gotten any better, and that's about when we finished building all of the houses around the lake. What I'm worried about is adding any additional people who are adding septic to the lake, because it continues to get worse. Eric, I think you know, and maybe can back me up on that. It's an issue and it's a problem, and the concern is that the Department of Health is going to talk about whether or not this little unit is going to work for requirements that they have of a septic system. They're not going to care about what it does to a lake that is 200, 300, 500 feet away. So I don't believe there's adequate review for our particular circumstance about the lake. And I would hope that you could add something in, or in some way relate to us that adding septic in an area which has a lake, and I think a lake or a stream or other things that were mentioned before, I know Hunts Lake and Wappingers Creek, those kind of things, should they be separate in some way and have a separate circumstance with regard to how they are dealt with because of the septic issue and the increase in it, and we do have a problem. We need to deal with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Kathy? Here we go.
Kathy Zier, 158 Shelley Hill Road. I have just two questions on this. It isn't under a heading that I can, it says, no detached accessory dwellings shall be allowed in the absence of a separate principal single-family detached dwelling, which shall be deemed to be the primary use of the premises. My question comes in, what does this mean? A detached accessory dwelling unit shall be required to meet the same minimum dimensional standards as a single-family detached dwelling. Is that talking about setbacks?
Setbacks.
So if you have a legal accessory building, which has different setbacks than a primary dwelling, then it has to come to the ZBA for variances? Garages need 20 feet, houses need 50.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what, so this way anything in a detached accessory structure would not have the same setbacks for an accessory?
I think your reading of that sentence would be correct, but that's what it says.
So then every accessory dwelling that's being converted, any accessory structure that's being converted to a dwelling would have to come to the ZBA for setback variances if it's a legal accessory structure.
Even though it's a pre-existing structure, for
right,
example.
which doesn't seem real, proper.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, on the section regarding, and I didn't get the right draft either, so.
You didn't get my second email, or you don't get my email?
I don't get your emails. Rita gave me a draft that was not current. I got one here tonight.
Okay.
Section 3, District Schedule of Use Regulations, and it goes on, and it says, District Schedule of Use Regulations, subsection E, the use accessory dwelling unit shall replace accessory apartment on residential premises, and P shall replace SP under the following categories. And what do you determine the P means?
Permitted?
Permitted use.
As opposed to
Okay,
special
currently, unfortunately, our use table does not have any permitted uses. They're only primary principal uses, which is a real, as you know, current problem with the ZBA and the code. So that whole section
It has,
of the district schedule will have to be addressed.
You got that, Bob?
let's see here. the piece, the actual definition for P is permitted principal use in a specified district.
If you read below that, the next
Yeah.
word list, PSP.
Yep. So, okay, so that may need to be, we should need some, maybe need to have a footnote that would say that it's not a principal use, it's an accessory use.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Yes. Charlotte?
Yes. Charlotte Grasso, 5918 Route 82.
I'm sorry, what was the number?
5918.
Thank you.
Problem. Some of my problems are, number one, wastewater and water itself. The Board of Health has called me on finding out where my leads are and things for properties and other places so that they can approve that. So they really don't know who has what and where their leach fields are because they needed to put in a well. I have a problem with that. If we have a problem here when I'm on 82, what about all these other little places? That's one thing. I am concerned about wildlife, and are we going to be knocking down trees? We had a tree that had bees in it, and it was taken down. And from my understanding, trees were not supposed to be taken down if there were bees in it, because bees have problems all over the place now. Always concerned about driving. We have enough problems on 82. We have people speeding there all the time. The little sign there was great, but people are still doing 60 down there. And at night, it gets worse. And then what about the electric grid? Are we going to be putting in electric grid and for electric cars now that we need plug-ins? How much more is that drain that going to be on us? And then, another thing. Sorry, that's part of it. Just worried about the scenery in general, and I am concerned about the health department. They don't know exactly where everybody's leach fields are. That's it.
Thank you. Hi.
Deborah Dillinger, 171 West Huns Lake Road. I didn't read the newest thing that came out. I read the old one as quick as I could because I was really busy at work. But I do have a couple questions. One, a lot of what I am hearing is that you are talking about having affordable. I've heard you actually say it tonight, that you're hoping that some things will be affordable. I'm not saying that you can control it.
Correct.
Got that.
Yes.
So I don't really think that that's right, unless you're renting it yourself to your father, your mother, or your kids. The other thing is what's the specific for a long-term rental? Do you have a 3 months, 6 months, a year? So if it's not stipulated in there, you can have somebody rent for 3 months? So I think, shouldn't there, if you're going to have it as a long-term rental, isn't that what it's in there as?
No.
Not a short-term rental?
No, it's just, the way that this was written was to address just the shortage of housing in general. And there was no stipulation in here about defining a long-term rental, only to say that short-term rentals are not part of this.
Right, they're underneath the
Yeah.
other, that I understand. But if you don't have something that stipulates that at some point, then I think it could get a little confusing on that end of it.
I don't think that's something we can control. I mean, if you are allowed to put a second structure on your property because it meets all
Correct.
the requirements, we as a town board can't tell you what to do with it.
Exactly.
But still, our hope is that we will create more housing space in Stanford. And again, we can't control who moves in there.
That was going to be my other thing.
We
I mean,
can't.
especially if you're trying to find the affordable, just housing in general. And who are you trying to get into those places? Is it the locals or just people from anywhere?
I mean, it's interesting
because you can't control it.
No, totally. And it's super interesting because there's a lot of, there are many other places that are doing lots of different things to try to, quote unquote, attract the people that they want in that town. For instance, Columbia County just put in, they have a, they call it like mini houses, basically.
Yes.
And they're doing things with mini houses, and they're subsidizing those tiny homes to attract more farm workers, basically. And so that is their solution. Our solution is, right now, I don't think we're there yet, because, you know, we don't even have enough housing to support people who are currently here. But I think we're just trying to build or allow for some build so that we can get a proxy for what that looks like in maybe 5 to 10 years and then address it. You know, I think the reality is that our rental units year over year, and you can see it in the comprehensive plan, have gone down considerably. It used to be 30% of the housing units in 2010. It's now 18%. And it's going even further down. And so we have a very hard time attracting younger families. And I think we can probably say that it's the younger families that are avoiding this town completely because, one, they can't afford to buy a house, and two, there's nowhere to rent here.
Right.
And I know several families who've moved out of Stanford because of that reason specifically. So I would say, you know, affordable housing, you know, farm worker housing, I think it's frankly younger families that we're looking to bring in who are renting at this stage, and we have nowhere to put them. And so therefore school enrollment's going to go down, the burden of those taxes are going to continue to go up. It becomes, quite honestly, like a boulder that just continues to go downhill. And so I think this is our first attempt, and appreciate all of the feedback because there's a lot of great feedback. Our first attempt at trying to just do something, and where we haven't done anything for decades.
I know I'm probably over my 3 minutes, so if anybody else has anything to say, otherwise I was going to mention one more thing.
You have some time.
And that was about the septics. Not that I know everything, I don't, but I know that if you have an existing home already and you wanted to put an apartment on your home, okay, they're going to look at the size septic that you already have. If it's for a 3-bedroom house, then that's all you can put in unless you meet the qualifications to put in a new septic someplace.
That's right.
So if that new septic, for those who are looking around the water and stuff like that, they're going to look at that whole dynamics to make sure whether or not it will be okay. You know, so I'm not saying that everybody knows exactly where everything is, okay, but they do.
The Board of Health doesn't know it, that's the concern.
Okay, but there's other engineering things that have to take place during the whole building thing that I think will hopefully, you know, do that. The other thing I just wanted to bring up too is about the affordable housing thing is, which I'm sure we've all probably talked about at some point, was, is there some place in Stanfordville that could have, I've talked to other people myself, and they look at they're like a modular home, a small modular one-level home. And yes, it's in a clustered little area, but nicely presented for elderly people who, you know, are budgeted, okay? And people are looking to find that. So could we find a spot in Stanfordville that, even if it was a builder, would want to do something like that where it was kept very nice? Maybe there'd be an area for over 55 and another one for families where it is kept under a certain amount of money, because
that'll be time, by the way.
Yes, I know. So I'm going to run, but that was all I had to say.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm standing as myself, Renee Richard, 6 Drake Road, Clinton Corners. So just a couple of questions. So just reading this, and I'm going back to, and it's not that you had provided, and this is me. I know Patrick had his own concerns, but it's mine too as I read it. Why would the town board take the onus of what a planning board has to do when it comes to determining, not the onus, perhaps giving it to the building inspector, to issue the permits, to ensure everything is to code per Department of Health and everything else, and then give the CO, certificate of occupancy, rather than have it go to the planning board? go through a proper secret review to ensure that the parcel, whatever it is, 5 acres, 1.5 acres, that even though it has a primary dwelling, if they're going to build something different on that piece of property, that there's no impact, to the rest of the piece of parcel. Do you know what I'm saying?
Tom, when does the planning board get involved and when does it not get involved?
So as of right now, in town Stanford, you have, as of right, to put a two-family house on any lot that is of proper size. It has to be double the acreage. So most towns 5-acre zoning. So if you have 10 acres zoning, you have an absolute right to put another house on your lot without coming to the planning board. With respect to the guest cottages and with respect to accessory apartments and so forth, you would have to come to the planning board right now to get approval. The thought behind what was proposed was to kind of equalize it. So you're going to treat the small landowner the same as you're going to treat the large landowner. And since the large landowner doesn't have to come see the planning board under certain circumstances, allow the small landowner to save that expense and time and to allow them to go forward and to have a second dwelling unit if they meet all the requirements that Wendy was mentioned. So that was the thought behind having.
So you don't think that it's important for a system of checks and balances to have the planning board involved because we're trying to build population and grow the town?
Well, Tom?
It makes it simpler. So if you're a property owner, it removes the whole time, it removes the whole expense process, and allows you to do what you want to do on your property as long as you meet the requirements that you would have to meet to build a house. So it's to simplify it and equalize it, and not treat the big guy differently than the little person. So that's
Thank
kind
you.
of concept.
Okay, so that's my first question. I'm good on time?
Yeah.
Okay, second question is, oh, hold on. I lost it. It's always the way, right? Ah, here it is. So right now, the proposed law is for all zones of Stanfordville. It's understood that growth is we're all for bringing in additional, population or growing the affordable housing availability. Has any thought been to limiting it so that you can grow smartly as opposed to having it carte blanche, the Wild West kind of thing, where every zone is available, or is open to this, and perhaps making it so it's particular zones a little at a time, slow, steady growth, just to sort of have it a little bit more controlled? Has any thought been given to that?
I think when we were on the zoning commission, we take putting an apartment over a garage as a good example. I think we wanted everybody to be able to do that if they can afford to do it, which is also going to be one of the brakes on this whole project is the cost of building. But we didn't talk about doing an overlay for some districts and not others. Like, let's say there could be an overlay for the Lake districts where you could only do a garage apartment and you couldn't do
right.
We didn't discuss that.
I'm just asking if it's possible to consider it.
I think sure.
I'm just asking.
I think the biggest consideration that the two big use cases were families that own houses now and they have aging parents or grandparents that cannot afford a home. And then you have younger families that cannot afford to rent. I think those two use cases are going to come to a huge tipping point in the future, and we're not even close to that. I think we're still quite a ways away from that. So I think our thought process here was let's just quite honestly see for what happens when this goes on, and we can probably do something in the future to potentially add some additional restrictions to the law, but let's see, from a cost standpoint, it's going to be probably prohibitive for the majority of the town to build. I'm not sure how many of you have seen the cost for building materials, but they've gone up considerably over the last several years. And then, just the limitations on, septic, as we've talked about, and water. There are no plans for that we've even talked about in the least to talk about central water or anything of that in that regard. So we are already quite limited, from the footprint of our town here, from really doing any sort of large-scale development, just looking at where we are today. So this is going to be pretty prohibitive for I'm not going to say the majority of people, but for quite a large amount of the community. And then folks that are large landowners and want to maintain privacy will probably continue to do that. So it's really going to be a use case that's going to be folks that have really probably slammed their hands on the table and said, look, I have aging parents that can't afford it, and I have, my neighbor moved out because they can't afford the rent here anymore. Those are the two biggest use cases that we see and are hoping to address with it.
Okay, I appreciate your time, and I'm glad to hear that it'll be monitored so that in case, things get a little out of hand, which I don't know, no one can predict the future. And I know, Eric, you're probably saying, no, it'll never happen, but you never know.
I just think it's
And you have to
unlikely.
plan for those potential consequences ahead of time, because once it gets out of control, you have no control. So
Agreed.
that's all I'm asking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You again.
Yes, me again. Just another quick. This has to do with Deborah Dillinger, 171 West Huns Lake Road, Stanfordville, New York. The taxes. So if you have two houses on one parcel versus if you built on a separate deeded parcel, does it make any difference on how it's taxed in the town and the schooling and that whole thing as a renter going in? How much will go towards school taxes or land taxes? So is that anything that we have to consider? That's all.
I can't, you're looking at me, so I'm not sure I can answer that, but, and probably the person to answer it would be Steve Godovich. But if you had a home, a parcel with a primary residence and an accessory dwelling unit on it, it would probably be taxed less than two parcels each with a single primary residence, I would think, although I don't know whether the difference would be all that large.
Tom?
I just don't know. I'm guessing.
Steve Godovich is on the zoning commission. We talked about this exact issue, and he said he's got it.
But what does that mean? He's got it.
That he's going to
Reassess.
handle this, and then it's not going to be a problem for him as the tax assessor.
Well, he'll determine what the assessments are, obviously, but I think the question was whether we would get more tax revenue if these were on separate parcels, I think. I don't know. Is that the question, Debbie?
Whatever. Like I said, I don't know if it would change anything. That's where I was just coming from, just to find out about that.
Well, the school tax is a function of, that's a function of your assessed value of your home. So if you're building or adding on to your home, the likelihood of your home value increasing is probably pretty high. So you will be taxed accordingly to that. So I think it's that same.
Well, yeah.
No, there'll be a reassessment. If building permits are pulled and you put in a new unit and you spend money, the tax assessor is going to reassess and your taxes will go up.
Can I try and translate that for a second? I think I know what you're trying to say.
Okay.
Is there a distinguishment in taxes for having a accessory dwelling unit versus declaring a building a primary? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Well, that's a whole other thing, but I really didn't know if more of any kind of consequence, say, for the town. having more rental units within the town, I don't know whether that does anything.
Well, it's still owned by somebody.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Diane Zakarowski, 7 Hope Drive. I just wanted to jump on some of the things that Renee said a little bit. I agree with her. My mother told me a long time ago, and we probably all heard it 120 times, an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. And I just feel that opening these up to all zoning is maybe a little short-sighted, and really need to think about it and do our planning a little more carefully and judiciously to prevent having to fix problems that are often more expensive and harder to fix down the line. And I also have great concerns with the septic systems. I know everybody depends on the Department of Health. You gotta have the sign off and you gotta have your well tested. I developed for the state of New York for 25 years. I know more about septics than I ever in my life thought I would know or wanted to know. I've had some down and dirty battles with building inspectors and the health department over regulations and what I had to do versus what anybody else had to do, even though all those requirements were exactly the same. And with that experience behind me, I've also seen locally how lacking follow-up is with those sign-ups and what bad jobs are done and regulations that really are not followed and nobody there to check up on them. And you're really relying on a few sign-offs and the poor building inspector to have to do all of that. And that's a lot of weight on one person. And I think that is really a problem in and of itself. I wouldn't want the job myself. I've had a license as a building inspector. I know what it entails. And I think it's open to abuse. It's open to overwork. It's open to just not being able to even oversee what needs to be overseen, which is not the greatest right now anyway. And I just ask that all of those things, when you're finalizing and continuing to put this law into place, be considered, because they're very important and can save us all a lot of problems down the road. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right then.
Can I just ask a clarification question? Julia, do you know what the reasons were for rental housing being reduced to 18%?
I don't. It was in the comprehensive plan, and I looked at it, and I was actually kind of shocked to see the number of renter-occupied units going down. The only thing I can imagine is that they decided to convert it to an owner-occupied unit. But it's just data from our comprehensive plan. In 2000, out of 1,400 total occupied housing units, we had 392 renter-occupied. I didn't do that math, but it's probably close to 30%. In 2010, it was 419 out of 1,476, which was 30%. It's not a true number, but the estimate, given census changes for 2014 to 2018, so that's not even where we are today, was 287 out of 1,513, which was 18.9%. So that trend has probably steadily started to go down. What I also pulled was the data from Pine Plains, and Pine Plains, their percentage of renter occupied has gone up. However, their last measurement of it, they had 0 available units for rent in their comprehensive plan. So it's probably shifted slightly from here in terms of rents to Pine Plains slightly, but they also have no rental availability. And again, I know people who've moved out of this area completely because they just couldn't afford, you know?
Yep.
It sucks.
Anyone
It
else?
sucks.
Then I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to say thank you all very much for coming out and for voicing your thoughts and your concerns. I think, and I will make the recommendation that to the board that we do not vote on this tonight, that we go back and examine the issues that were brought up tonight and come back again with a new improved, tweaked version. Because the reason we have these public hearings is to listen to your concerns, and so that's my recommendation.
I agree.
I agree.
Second, third, and fourth.
Okay, so, aye.
Aye.
Was that even a motion, or it was just a? Okay. Thank you.
Resolution 8C.
So we will postpone that whole big thing we were going to do with the law. Or Tom, thank you. Mr. Angel, thank you.
Thanks.
Ruh-roh, you're all leaving for all the.
If anyone wants a cucumber, please, my garden is exploding.
That's fine. That's fine. They came for what they.
You want a cucumber?
Martina, we have a cucumber with your name on it.
Oh my God, this is my one plant. I have so many and they're delicious. Please.
That's not your water.
Yes.
Except
Yeah,
that
no,
not with the garage.
I have plenty of tomato plants too.
Anybody on like this board? I would not
All
take
right.
that away. If we do some kind of oral.
From writing?
It has to.
Yeah. All right.
Interesting.
Next
You're
item.
talking about one bathroom in the garage apartment.
Right.
We're not talking about somebody putting in a whole house, which
Correct.
seems to be their concern. Okay. Moving right along, things get really exciting now. Resolution 8A to transfer funds from American Rescue Fund's account New York class ending in 09 and move the funds to the general fund ending in 018, whereas the town of Stanford will be investing American Rescue Plan funds to pay for a backup generator for the communications cell tower on Quarter Horse Way. And whereas the New York class account, American Rescue Fund account, contains funds for this purpose, and whereas the town of Stanford will transfer funds from the American Rescue Plan Fund to the general fund to purchase this generator, now therefore be it resolved, the supervisor is authorized to complete the following budget modifications and transfer funds from the American Rescue Fund's account to the general fund. And we're talking about the generator cost $1,999. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any conversation?
No.
Wendy Burton?
Yes.
Julie Dakota?
Yes.
Eric Ames?
Yes.
David Richard absent. Theodore Sikor?
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 8B, 2024, emergency air conditioning replacement. Not these.
Not these.
Whereas circumstances may arise when the town board is faced with an emergency that was neither anticipated nor budgeted for, and whereas the town has funds in the American Rescue Plan account which can be utilized for such an emergency, and whereas the air handler unit between the supervisor's suite of offices and the town court's suite of offices has failed and caused flooding in the area between the two suites, and whereas the failure has been temporarily mitigated but continues to intermittently fail, and whereas the summer has been brutally hot, not wet, well, wet and hot, and it was wet inside the building and outside, hot, and our workspace must be air conditioned and flood free. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Stanford authorizes the supervisor to enter a contract with Bottini Fuels in the amount of $31,850 to evacuate and remove the old air handler condenser and install a hot water air handler in the ceiling space between the supervisor bookkeeper's offices and the court offices, install the equipment specified in the contract, as well as the necessary line sets, drain lines, signal wire, and outdoor pad. Be it further resolved that the supervisor is authorized to complete the following budget modification and transfer the funds from the American Rescue Plan account to the general fund. And that is $31,850. No. Sorry. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any conversation?
No?
Judy Brooks, Wendy Burton.
Yes.
Judy DeCarlo.
Yes.
Eric Haynes.
Yes.
Nathan absent. Igor Sikor.
Yes.
The post office issues, I just want to do, I want us to do a little update on what's been happening with the post office. We've received so many complaints and frustrations from the people who live here. So the first step was I went down and talked to Ed, the new postmaster in Stanfordville, and he explained that we lost 2 postal workers at the same time that retired, Herbie and... No, Trez wasn't a carrier. Bruce, thank you. I mean, Trez did retire, but she wasn't a carrier. So we lost 2 carriers, and then I believe one other town, it might have been Pine Plains, also lost a carrier. And they have not been able to hire anyone. I think there are many reasons why hiring is a problem at the post office. The hours stink. They won't hire you full-time. The retirement benefits don't kick in for, I think, 9 years. I mean, something really squirrely. So actually, who in the world wants to like sign up and be a postal worker?
They're actually also being hired from Albany.
Thank you.
Not here.
So, right. So anyway, so you're right. He suggested that I go and talk to the Pine Plains postmaster, who many of you know does not even answer his phone. And so, fast forward, Teddy took up the gauntlet and went down to speak with him directly. I cornered him in the post office. But one thing I'll say, because Louise brought this to our attention, until this, if this ever gets resolved, it might be a good idea for us, those of whom are affected on those routes, to stop their mail delivery and go pick your mail up at Pine Plains, because that's 18 miles you have to go, but you'll get your mail, you'll get your bills, you'll get your checks. To a bad situation, I think at the moment that's the best fix. When we're going to actually get this resolved, I have no idea. Pat Ryan, our congressman.
Joy is fired.
Right. Well, that's not going to happen right away. So Pat Ryan will talk to you about this issue. I know that there was a citizen here who actually contacted him about her problem, and somehow it got resolved. I don't think he's going to be able to resolve everybody's mail problem, but so that's my suggestion. It's really Louise's brilliant idea. But Teddy, what did you learn when you went to Pine Plains?
In my 8 minutes there.
Your 8 minutes session.
And I talked with the postmaster for about 6 of that time. So, no, it's essentially taking the complaints that we've heard from the town. I brought that to the postmaster's issue, and his immediate reaction was, yep, I've heard it all, et cetera, et cetera. Go on, Teddy. His explanation of the issues was employment, and no one wants to work. The summer slump, the vacation time, it really takes away from employment. Be as critical of that statement as you wish. I did ask if he'd feel comfortable talking to the public, at least answering, and he did not feel comfortable talking and explaining the situation, but ultimately his view on it was employment. So he was not really the most helpful to our cause here. I think Wendy really summarized it, that there's some practical solutions at hand for the time being, but the town can only be involved in so much that we're private citizens, and we can say, hey, you lost my mail, or I'm not getting my packages on time. I personally have been affected by The Postal Service, I lost 2 letters in the mail, and they have not found it. And I did go to the post office, and they did not have them in Pine Plains, but it said ended up at Pine Plains. So make of that what you will, but the town has no oversight to the post office. You can only write letters and concerns to the post office and the federal level too. That really helps explain the situation. That's really it. That's all the postmaster really repeated to me.
So follow Louise's advice, I think. I mean, honestly, I think it's the best suggestion because we have no control over the...
There's no control. He has no help. What's he going to do?
Right.
They're borrowing from other towns.
And they don't know the routes?
They don't know the routes. They don't know the people. You know, you just, give the guy a break. I'm sure he's...
Tearing his hair out.
Yeah.
Who's above him that people go to?
Nobody.
It's not a local issue, it's a national.
It's a federal issue.
Well, I don't
It's a
think-
national issue, not federal.
It's happening.
No, I mean, it's controlled at the federal government.
It's happening everywhere.
The post office is a federal.
We're governed.
Okay.
Taxpayer money does not fund the postal service.
Right.
Yes, it does.
No, it
Okay.
doesn't.
All right, I'm sorry, we're not going to do this.
2023, 2022 Act.
The next item on the agenda, we just want to tell you, we're not actually going to discuss this at length right now, because we have a survey going out to get people's feedback, but our rec director, Lauren Osterman, came to us with a proposal to open up a summer camp for next summer. She's been wanting to do this for a few years, and finally the pieces have come together. She put together a really sound proposal, put all the costs in, and right now what the board asked her to do was to do a survey to see how much feedback we got from people. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Bye, Kathy. So that's where we are. She's launching a survey.
She sent it today.
Right, she sent it out, but who did she send it to? Just
Her rec list.
Her rec list. So I think I'll put a link in that to my newsletter, and maybe.
Yeah, we'll put it in the campaign.
And then we're also going to have, it'll be talked about, I think at
Community Day.
Community Day. So before we take this step, which would not, the costs actually would be fairly well offset by payment, but before we do this major thing, we just want to make sure the need is actually there. Lauren feels confident that it is, but we'd like some more hard numbers. So that's in the works, and it's pretty darn exciting. Next, I would like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Richard Bell from the Recreation Commission.
Second.
Sadly, second.
Sadly.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I would like to appoint Lorelei Christensen to the Recreation Commission.
Seconded gladly. Love Lorelei.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I just want to add that I did not get a letter from Lorelei today. She has a new job, so I think she was a little snowed under.
But she wants?
She definitely wants to be on.
Okay.
Great. Cool.
We'll take her at her word then.
Crown Energy?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I make a motion. Some of you may have noticed or have heard that we installed new HVAC system throughout the building, almost throughout the building. And, oh boy, was it long overdue. Heating, as many of you know, is a nightmare and expensive because we have an ancient oil-burning furnace that is on its last leg. We had old air conditioners, and then there were offices that had no air conditioning or heat. So we have a capital project that is supplying new HVAC. But one component of that is a separate cost from Crown Energy to install, or it's going to be a propane system, sorry. So the old oil tank has to be removed from the ground, and Crown will be doing that, and they will be installing propane tanks. It's not an inexpensive thing to dig out an old oil tank, and we all have to really keep our fingers and toes crossed that there's no contamination in the soil, because that'll be another mess to deal with. But we have a proposal from Crown to deliver a 1,000-gallon underground propane tank, to install the piping, blah, 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 to dig out the tank bed, haul sand to cover the tank, and blah, blah. Anyway, the whole enterprise will cost $15,726. And so I make a motion to approve the propane tank installation from Crown Energy.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Questions?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
By the way, the HVAC system is being paid for. Part of it, we got a gift from a citizen of $25,000 to help us with the cost, and the rest of the cost is coming out of our building reserve fund. And it's a reason why I'm so happy to have healthy reserve funds, because this is the time that you actually say we have the money to do this project. And we've built them, I think we've built them responsibly, and I'm glad that we have them. You know, we don't have to bond anything, and anyway, if you're interested, that's how we're paying for the HVAC system. I have a motion to approve replacing windows in the back part of the building. If any of you have been in Rita Mary's office, the windows don't open. And if you try to open them, you could lose your arm, if you were stupid enough to try to open them. And that goes for Steve Godovich's office, the historian's office. It's that suite of windows that we're going to finally replace. And I make a motion to approve. We did do RFP. We got only one company out of the three bid the job, which was Hobson. And their proposal cost $25,499.70. And Rita will be eternally grateful forever if we do this. So I would like to approve, I'd like to make a motion to approve the window replacement from Hobson window.
Second.
All in favor?
Are there any questions?
We've discussed.
No, discussed already.
I know, but you go through that
No,
motion in case something happens.
True.
You know, something. Aye. Okay, so I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Present. And I would like to make a motion to approve the August abstract. Bye, Sandra. The general fund spent $55,570. The highway fund spent $68,526. The highway vehicle reserve fund, this is another reason why it's so great to have reserve funds, because when Jim needs a truck, we can buy it. $71,423, and the ambulance, $62,500.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unfortunately.
It's amazing what it costs to run a small town.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm just so glad we don't live in Poughkeepsie or Albany. I mean, can you imagine Chicago, what it would cost?
I was in Hudson the other day, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
how that town has changed.
There's no other items on the agenda. I would like to open the privilege of the floor again if anyone has anything they'd like to say.
I'll be brief. Renee Richards, 6 Drake Road. Just thank you for your supervisor notes. I really appreciate that you send everything out and you're transparent. 2, I attended arts and crafts and camp and whatever when I was little at the rec for at least 12 or 13 years. So I'm all for that camp and I hope it succeeds. And 3, did you happen to do the RFP for the Botini fuel, the whole thing? Because I know there are other companies that may, like Fox Air or AirServe.
The reason we did it was because it's an actual emergency. They were in the building, and we don't have the time to do an RFP and to get bids and to open bids, and because we had a flood back there.
Yeah.
Normally we would. In the case of an emergency, you don't have to, and this is the first emergency we've actually.
I just thought
they were already in here doing. We had RFP'd earlier in the year for the work that they were in here doing. So when we got, I think, 3, if not 4 proposals back, and Botini was the lowest, and so we ended up going with them, and that's why they were here.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love an RFP. Yeah. Right?
Jane, you're
looking funny, right? Yeah, we did an RFP.
We had a bid.
Yeah.
For the emergency?
No, earlier.
The first time.
HVAC.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Anybody else? Okay then.
Just ready to go home.
Very pointed.
I really.
Why do those windows cost $25,000?
Because there's a lot of them.
Huge. How many windows?
A lot.
I think there's at least 10.
10.
Bye, Jane.
And they have to be shatterproof.
Well, we're not locked
They have to be shatterproof.
They're bigger than that.
They're huge.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Thank you for your feedback.
Yes,
it was
thank
super
you so
helpful.
much for your feedback.
Need a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.